UFC Vegas 75 just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. We'll start with the main event, then work our way down to the first fight of the night. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. In the main event, we had Cannonier and Marvin Vettori, and Cannonier showed us a level difference between him and Marvin. Top tier Cannonier let a ton of volume out. He broke the significant strike record for the middleweight division. Marvin Vettori showed great chin. He eats bombs, but he had zero answer for Cannonier. I mean, if you look at the strikes, when Vettori would land a punch, they would kind of be there. Like, it would hit. When Cannonier hit him, there was visible damage on the face. You even could sense the thud that Vettori was feeling on the other side. It was Cannonier dominant. I mean, he even had brutal ground and pound where we thought Vettori might have an advantage, would be on the floor. Cannonier was taking Vettori down. Now, in the first round, Vettori did have, some big moments and was catching Cannonier with the straight left hand. But as soon as Cannonier made the adaptation and stopped getting caught with that, he was hurting Vettori on a regular basis. Gotta respect the chin of Vettori, but as far as his skills for the top level guys, I mean, losses now before to Adesanya and Whitaker. Cannonier now takes him out, and he's like that tier below the best of the best. Cannonier's in a good spot. Win streak, beat Sean Strickland, and then now really got a convincing win over Marvin Vettori. I'm sitting here pondering who would be next for Cannonier after this one. I think you go Paulo Costa, and I know that Costa's coming off of I don't want to say lackluster, but less than impressive win over Luke Rockhold, and then before that, he lost to Marvin Vettori on the scorecards. I still feel like the name value of Costa is high level, the stylistic matchup with Cannonier, and at one point, regardless of whether you think it was controversial or not, Costa beat Yoel Romero. He's still a high-tier guy at 185 pounds, and he's going to be needing, I think, a matchup that's quality, not like an Ikram Aliaskarov. I think you got to give him a real top contender fight. Cannonier and Paulo Costa intrigues me a lot. Cannonier really didn't take a lot of damage, so I can assume a turnaround for him by November. Even October doesn't sound crazy at all, depending upon, how much wear and tear he got from this fight. I don't think it was a ton. I'm interested in that fight. For Marvin Vettori, he's in a rough spot. It was a real close fight with Dolidze previously, and then Cannonier beat him up. This type of beating is one where I would say, if you're Vettori, you should take some extra time off. I don't think there's any need for him to rush his way back into a fight. I'll assume Dricus du Plessis gets beaten by Robert Whitaker, and then I think that Marvin Vettori versus Dricus du Plessis would be a fight to make. So Cannonier, destructive win, beat up Marvin Vettori, shown he can put his combos together. Honestly, looks better at 39 than he ever has. So maybe a second title run is there for him at middleweight. And I mean, if he beats Paulo Costa, could be hard to deny him a shot on a 3-fight win streak. Only losses at the top to Israel Adesanya and Robert Whitaker. So interested in what's potentially next for Cannonier. I'll say Costa. Vettori, 29, tough reset in play now. Co-main event, Arman Tsarukyan, Joaquim Silva. Tsarukyan was dominant for most of the fight and ultimately got a TKO win, but was badly rocked in the second round by a left hook by Silva, and Tsarukyan's legs look completely gone. I mean, I was impressed that Tsarukyan was able to surmount a stoppage win and really go after, Silva late in the fight. But if you think back to the rounds and you're watching Tsarukyan, he's the number 8 guy rankings-wise in the world. Is he looking ready for a title shot against Islam? A lot of people feel he could be Islam's kryptonite. I don't think yet. 26 years of age, having a clean, dominant win over Silva, but with one scare of a moment. It shows me Tsarukyan is top caliber, but I don't think you're rushing him to a title fight. I know he called out Islam after the fight. But the matchup that makes a lot of sense for me is Arman Tsarukyan facing off with Beneil Dariush. Dariush just recently took a bad loss to Charles Oliveira last weekend. I think Arman Tsarukyan winning here deserves a big fight. Also, Beneil Dariush, he does have the win win over Gamrot. Gamrot has the controversial win over Tsarukyan. So I think for Tsarukyan, Beneil Dariush is the name. And if you beat Beneil now, you jump yourself up the ranks big time. Beating Silva doesn't tell me a lot here. Obviously, Tsarukyan's human. We know that. I think we knew it coming into the fight before, but I thought he would run through Silva a lot easier than he did because Silva had one of the better performances as of recent. I mean, I know he's got a win in his last fight against Jesse Ronson, but that's not all that big of a win. I mean, you know, he's taken some L's. And Tsarukyan had some struggles there. I just think slightly the stock drops a bit for Tsarukyan, but in the long run, that might be a better thing because he's actually going to be able to find fights now. He talks about how everybody in the rankings are denying fights with him. Well, after a competitive fight with Silva where he was hurt badly, he looked human in spots, had brutal ground and pound at the end, which, you know, put a staple on it. I think more fighters are apt to fight him. I think Beneil Dariush is going to be thrown to him. Obviously, Beneil is not overly favored by the UFC, and I think that they're going to throw Tsarukyan to him, hoping Tsarukyan can build off of a Beneil Dariush win and potentially become a title threat in 2024. Good win for Tsarukyan, but yes, he was tested. Featured bout Armen Petrosyan versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Petrosyan gave Duncan his first loss and exposed his lack of boxing skill. And I would say at times Christian Leroy Duncan really wants to rely on his athletic capabilities, but you're not able to do that with a Petrosyan who's extremely technical on the other side. I didn't like Leroy Duncan's antics as well, like turning his back to Petrosyan and like showing him his ass and walking backwards. Obviously, I didn't get him knocked out, but I just thought that types of gamesmanship doesn't seem to be all that effective, especially Leroy Duncan, essentially kicking based, really needs to develop more punching. I think if you look at his overall game at 27 years of age, you have somebody that has a frame that could be a threat. There's just, you know, some changes that need to be made. This was only a sophomore appearance in the UFC. Armen Petrosyan proved you can't be sleeping on him, me included, because I did sleep on Armen Petrosyan in this fight. And you look, Petrosyan has brought fire pretty much every time out. He's got the lone loss to Kyle Barajo, who's a grappling prospect. But as far as when he's in striking competitions, I mean, he's able to beat his opponents up and dominates Leroy Duncan. For Duncan, this is a fight that I think gives him a reality check, and he needs to work some things, but he's 27. He's got a fuckload of time. Petrosyan at 32 is now on his way up the rankings, and I'm kind of curious about this fight. Edmen Shahbazyan, Armen Petrosyan. I feel like it's an interesting matchup, and I think a lot of you guys will agree with me. It'd be kind of a clash of styles. I think Petrosyan would have a real chance there, but it'd be cooler to see him fight with Shahbazyan, who was, you know, also an Armenian prospect that came in and looked to be something special and now is falling on hard times, getting really fucked up by Fluffy Hernandez last time out. Petrosyan's probably not fighting somebody ranked after this one, but Edmen Shahbazyan's the name that I like. It might be far-fetched because, you know, obviously fighter coming off losing streaks versus wins, but Petrosyan Shahbazyan seems like a cool fight to me. For Leroy Duncan, back-end guy, maybe even AJ Dobson, but better to build him against somebody making a debut. Let's take our time with him. Before that, we had Pat Sabatini and Lucas Almeida, and this was an ass-whooping galore. Pat Sabatini got a hold of Almeida and exploited his lack of grappling skill. Specifically, the fact is not that he's getting taken down, it's that he could not do anything when Sabatini was on top. Now, let's not take away from Sabatini. I say the lack of grappling skill for Almeida. Also, the excellent grappling skill from Sabatini, who's ferocious when he gets on top. Locks up a clean win, gets the submission, beat him up from top position. Almeida had nothing for him when they were on the floor, and he seemed broken in the second round. After just a brutal beating he took in the first, it didn't seem like he had a lot left. Sabatini with a dope W, and he's a menace for sure with the grappling. Manuel Torres chins Nikolas Motta early on in the fight, or rather the round, because the fight didn't go long. Nikolas Motta caught Torres with the left hook. He looked like he might be landing some shots over the top. His hands look fast. And then Torres caught him with the perfect elbow that flattens Motta. And it was like a knockout of the year candidate. I definitely think that it's the knockout of the night. So performance of the night bonus. Manuel Torres, lock him is $50K. Nikolas Motta on the other side gets chinned brutally here. He's got a tendency to lose fights by KO. Manuel Torres is a KO artist, and he got it done real early. I feel like there's a load of potential on Manuel at 28. He's got a ferocious style. It's interesting to see what they do because there's some killers from Mexico at lightweight. Ignacio Bahamondes is a Hispanic savage. Daniel Zellhuber, absolute savage. I kind of like either one of those matchups if they're looking to really push Manuel Torres. Good position for him to be in with that sick knockout. Chin did come up a bit, and somebody might chin him with it, but it wasn't Motta. Before that, we had Nicolas Dalby opening up the main card, defeating Muslim Salikhov. In the first round, Salikhov looked incredible. His technical striking advantage is evident there, but then you look at the body of Nicolas Dalby, jacked back, crazy gas tank, forward pressure. That aids to an awesome finish in the second and third round, putting a fuckload of pressure on Salikhov. You actually heard him at the end of the first round too. But he was all over Salikhov with pressure, bullying him against the cage, throwing combinations. Salikhov was engaging the clinch in the third round because he had no gas to keep up. Nicolas Dalby is a tank. The guy's gas tank is off the charts. He doesn't get tired. He comes with a ton of pressure and volume, and he's hell to fight. He said he wants to turn around quickly. Interested in fighting in November? I'd say get him in November. Bring him back again. Yeah. Nicolas Dalby's 38. He's had a great UFC run. I'd say, aside from what? Tim Means beating him? He's doing good shit. Salikhov takes an L to him, and Salikhov is a dangerous striker, but Nicolas Dalby, too well-versed. He gets it done. Good win for Dalby. To end out the prelims, we had Alessandro Costa versus Jimmy Flick, and this was a one-way ass whooping. Alessandro Costa was levels above Jimmy Flick in the striking department, and he was getting ripped apart. I mean, from the moment the fight started, you saw the difference in the level of the stand-up games. Costa ripping him to the body, ripping him to the head. On the ground, it's not like Costa's a fish out of water with Jimmy Flick. I've said it, man. Jimmy Flick, he retired from the game when his momentum was in his favor. He then tried to come back, and just against these top savage flyweights, he doesn't have it for him. And Alessandro Costa is a prospect to keep an eye on. I think there's big things coming for him. Good ground and pound finish of Jimmy Flick. Before that, Kang defeated Cristian Quiñonez. It looked like Quiñonez was off to a great start, hurting Kang early, and then Quiñonez gets a little bit too wild and gets countered, dropped, and then ultimately gets submitted. You can't sleep on Kang. I feel like we learned this about Kang is that he's a consistent performer. Quiñonez, young guy, got a little reckless, made a huge error, and got countered by Kang beautifully, and then choked out. Respect to Kang getting it done. At 35, he doesn't look bad. He looks great, actually. Before that, Carlos Hernandez and Dennis Bondar faced off. And Bondar early looked good, but after the first round, and even, during the first round, Hernandez is taking over. He's finding his shots. Bondar is getting frustrated, and he's kind of trying to play too much gamesmanship, whereas Carlos Hernandez is not playing any of that bullshit. He's not falling into any antics. He's just there to fight, and he put it on Bondar and then finishes the fight with a slam TKO where they do technically collide heads, and then 7 elbows from Hernandez after Bondar's out because the referee was, looking at somebody in the crowd or something. I don't know if he saw, one of the ring girls and was checking her out. He was totally not paying attention. He's letting Bondar get killed. It looked like Bondar died after that fight. He took 7 seriously unneeded shots that could have serious implications on his health. So it's very bad as far as on the ref not getting in there early enough. Now, can I understand a slight fumble? 3, okay, but 7 strikes because the 10-second timer's going off, you just let the man die? can't go off that 10-second timer. You gotta jump in, man. I know it was a late third round stoppage, but holy shit. As far as the decision, it went actually to a technical decision because of the heads touching when they hit the floor from the Hernandez slam. Interesting rule there. I know I heard, Dom Cruz saying that in wrestling it's a legal move. It shouldn't be a disqualification or whatnot here. So interesting to note moving forward, if we see a slam like that again, get a knockout, let's say in a first round, does that now turn into a no contest? Because it was in the third round, we go to the decision. But if you're not 2 rounds into the fight, I believe, they're not going to score the fight. So very interesting. Not a rule that, has been talked about much. The heads clashing with the takedown, especially in that position there when they're kind of already head-to-head. Hernandez, sick win. Before that, Tereza Bledá exploited the serious hole in Gabriela Fernandez's game, and it is that she has no get-ups. Her takedown defense is okay, but when she's on her back, she is stuck there. For Tereza Bledá on the other side, note this about her. Third round, she gets gassed. Gabriela Fernandez was landing some dagger strikes in round 3 late. What happened? She can't stop a takedown. Fernandez on her back, fight over. Bledá gets the win. She was up the first 2. Fernandez had a good late onslaught and was really hitting her with good punches and, a nice right hand and throwing straights, or rather left hand because she's from Southpaw. Hurt her. Had her on wobbly legs. But if you can't stop the takedown and you can't get up from the ground, you're not going to beat a decent grappler like Bledá. Good win for Bledá there at 21. Before that, we had a no contest between Ronnie Lawrence and Dan Argueta. Unfortunate for Dan Argueta because he was bullying Ronnie Lawrence early, and he ended up having a fully locked-in guillotine choke, which, caused for some scrambles on the ground. Argueta has this guillotine, and Ronnie Lawrence looks like he's contemplating tapping. Then Keith Peterson, referee, grabs his arm, right, pulls it, and then Ronnie Lawrence's arm kind of falls back after Keith Peterson lets go of it. So it went like this. And then Peterson jumps in. Oh, you tapped. But then they went to the replay and it wasn't a tap. So Keith Peterson caused that reaction. So then Dan Argueta loses his win. He didn't lose the fight. He gets a no contest instead of a submission win, which was pretty likely. I mean, it looked like it was in. Come on, let's be real. He had that guillotine locked in from Mount. I mean, Argueta, he's got nasty ground skills. Holy shit. Lawrence, he was maybe a little bit of blood was left going to the brain, but it was tight. Would he have gotten out? Who knows? It ends up being a no contest. And then you ask yourself, are we running this back with how dominant Argueta was looking early? Probably not. So I don't know what's next for Argueta. For Ronnie Lawrence, he escapes without a loss, but suspect ground game against these other wrestlers now moving forward. Starting the night off, Modestas Bukauskas got a win over Zac Pauga. Very competitive fight, and he won a close decision. I disagreed with any 30-27 scorecard. I thought 29-28 was fair for Bukauskas. Pauga had good moments in the fight, though, and was finding his punches a ton in the second round. I think Bukauskas slightly got the first, and he got the third. One judge somehow, though, gave him 30-27, and I just think that's a terrible call. There's no way that it was 30-27. Pauga was tough. Bukauskas, I'm not overly impressed by him. Pauga, neither. Guys to watch out, maybe fade in the future. Bukauskas can strike a bit, but he gets caught a lot down the center. Pauga just is too green in the game. He's a good athlete, but he's too green in the game, and he's 35. He's not good to be green at 35. Granted, light heavyweight, he could still make something happen later. Modestas gets a close decision win. The card overall, I had a fuckload of fun watching. Ultimately, the picks did not go in my favor. Record was a disappointing 5-6 and 1 no contest for the night. But let's review the picks. I had Marvin Vettori over Cannonier. I got demolished with that. I had Silva over Tsarukyan. No, I didn't. I'm joking. I had Tsarukyan over Silva, and Tsarukyan got it done. I did not play that delusional dog. I had Leroy Duncan to beat Petrosyan, and Petrosyan whooped his ass. I pick flipped from Pat Sabatini to Lucas Almeida after the weigh-ins, which was a moron move because I would have had a win. Unfortunately, there I get a loss because I decide, hey, I'm pick flipping. I'm going Almeida, the striker. Stick with the grappler. Stick with the grappler next time. I'm telling myself that for a note. Manuel Torres, I had him by first round knockout over Nikolas Motta. Played him by KO. Glad to get it done. Glad he fucking pulled it off. It was sick. Nicolas, Dalby, Salikhov. I was picking Salikhov. Dalby gets it done. Grimy decision. Good performance. Alessandro, Costa, Jimmy Flick. Played Costa. Decided to also play knockout prop in the second round on the Fight Companion live stream. Little D-Gem play, and it came through beautifully. Costa got a second round knockout. Had that one. Happy about that win. Thought Quiñonez would take out Kang, and it looked good early. Got fucked up. Lost that one. Had Bondar over Hernandez, and listen, it just turned into a fucking shit show. The replacement value lock, which I was moronic on, is Bondar. Unfortunately, the Bunez one wasn't there, because after how the night looked all shitty, that Bunez fucking call, I still feel like would have been beautiful, but that's the fight game. Bondar got fucked up bad. Carlos Hernandez beat his ass, and Bondar, we take an L. Had Bledá over Hernandez, which turned out to be a good call here. Lawrence, I was picking him to win. Ultimately, this fight's a no contest. And I picked Bukauskas by decision over Zac Pauga, and we rocked it right with that one. So ultimately, 5-6-1 on an iffy card. Some good calls, some little mistakes I got to touch up on, like some of the delusional pick flip like Sabatini to Almeida. And don't doubt the Armenian kickboxers and that UFC experience, man. Fucking Dalby, too. Like, some of these ones, good surprise. Dalby's a good surprise. Petrosyan, he looked nasty, man. And my brother picked Petrosyan. I thought Leroy Duncan had him. Torres got a fucking sick night. Like, I like looking at the results again and just like, damn, it was a fun-ass night. Though the fights delivered for sure. The biggest surprise of the night might have been Kang. Yeah, Kang with this sub might have been the biggest one. Like, if he was to win, I thought he would have got a split decision. But him finishing him was like, wow. And Silva actually putting up a fight with Tsarukyan. Good card. I had a blast covering it all week long. Coming back with the picks for UFC Jacksonville today, if you're watching this on Sunday. So stay tuned for those. I'm looking forward to breaking it down. I hope you guys enjoyed the full card recap show. If you guys haven't, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I appreciate everybody for the support. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you got nothing to say, as always, drop a W in the chat. Appreciate to everybody who's tuned in to the week's worth of content, and much love to all you. And shout out to the people that were in the live stream for the full card. We had a lot of fun in the Fight Companion. See you all in the next one. Peace, guys.